So the question was, can we enter a bearing in other than the bearing location? And the answer is yes. And this is how we're going to do it. When you open KISSsoft, you'll run as administrator. Click yes. And you're going to open a shaft calculation. I've already created a file. I just used an example and saved it as a different name. Shaft bearing 1. Okay. We look at this. It's a 6307 bearing. 2Z. It can be just a straight 6307. There we go. Bearing. We're going to save that bearing. So on our shaft now we have bearings. We have a gear. Looks like we got a motor coupling. We've got loads. We can calculate this shaft. And then it gives us all this information. And then we're going to save it. Now I chose to call this shaft 1 bearing. I save it. But maybe I want a different bearing here. Maybe I have a bearing that I really want to check out on its own. So I can open the bearing module, and I want the 16281. This is the one that has the inner geometry that we can specify on our own. And what I want to do is I want to look at that second bearing that I applied in there. So I go ahead and I filter to the location I saved that shaft bearing right there. I know it's a roller bearing because that was on my in my shaft module, and I know I want the bearing loads. And I know there's only one shaft, so it's on the first shaft as it's numbered, and it's the second bearing. If I go back to that model tree for the shaft, there's 2 bearings, 1 and 2. The second one is the one I want. And then I hit calculate. So it pulls all the information in from that particular deep groove ball bearing. In the rating I have the loads. I can look at displacement as well if I so chose up here. And then I can run it that way. And then we get some other information, and we can look at the displacements. And also you have your load distribution over on this side. So now say you want to change and look at some different radiuses or whatever it might be. If you click the file interface off, now you can change all these different things. So maybe you want some discrete numbers. Maybe that becomes a 5-1. Maybe this becomes a 23. Maybe the outer ring becomes a 63. And then we can calculate. The load information here is correct, and the force is also there. So you can look at load or force. Let's say then we run this again. The limits want that. So what is the oscillating angle? Maybe we want to go back to displacement. What it said 137.5. There you go. And then you get some different load information and some stress, whatever you might be. So now I look at this bearing data, and I take these numbers. In this case it's 144451. There's 7 of them, 57 and 5115. And I can use this information now to enter a new bearing, and it's going to be based off that 6307. And whatever we ended up doing in there is what we're going to put here. So we go to the database and we say yes, we want write authorization. And it's a deep groove ball bearing. It's a single roll, and we hit edit. And then it's going to load all the different bearings that we have. There's a bunch of information there that we need to download. So it might take a few moments to download that. In this case, it's probably going to take about a minute. So we'll let that download. And we need to run as administrator in order to modify the database. It makes it real easy to come back and look at your bearings. You can also add in your bearing ring deformation. There's a module for that. It's in this module. Actually, there's an example of how to do that. There's a table that you can enter, and it's pretty powerful as well. So our database tool is loading. It's almost done. Okay, we have all our bearings in here. I want to make sure that I can see that information I got. So what I'm going to scroll for is that 6307 bearing that we had initially specified. And that's right here. And then I'm going to hit plus. And by highlighting this bearing, I have a base bearing that I can select from. So then I add a row. You can see now it has this 6307, which is what I initially picked up. So I'm just going to give this a new input name. It's a 63 series type. Nominal width. Okay, that's fine. Minimal inner quarter radius. External diameter. These things are sort of standard. Your load ratings. You have some additional data you can put in here, misalignment, those type of things. Stiffness, if you know what it is. Your internal geometry, we already talked about this, and here it is over on this side. So I just hit 7, 14, 4, 4, 5, 1. Pitch circle diameter. Okay, I'm not sure what that is. Inside diameter of the pressure wheel side, D31. Some of these dimensions are probably going to be radius of curvature inner ring, 0.51, 23, outer ring, 7.6, 563. Okay, so dBA. Outside diameter, I think it was 57. What's this? 57.51. 5. Pitch circle diameter. dPW, I'm not sure what that number was. Anyways, you can enter those numbers, and now you can save it. Okay, we exit out of here. Close. We close here. dPW, dW. Okay. Some of that information was already there, so here's where you would put your ring deformation information in. It'd be a file. Your rating information is in here. Now, we put this information in to a new bearing. So in order to use it on the shaft, we go back to our shaft 1. We'll say, yeah, sure, we'll save this. bearing new. And then we go back to shaft 1, which we have here, and now we can actually filter and grab this new bearing that we specified and put it into our shaft. So we can run it, and it gives you this bearing 2, gives you the service life. That was just an example of how we can link the two together. Now if I open up my bearing that I just created, sure, we'll save this. I can turn this on, I can run it. These are my numbers. See, they're in here. These are the numbers that I put in my bearing information. You can look at your rating, 137.5. That was the number I put in. And now it's taking the loads from that shaft. So that's how you would link the two together, so you can work on them back and forth just by linking this file, looking at the bearings.